Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Love at First Sight, Sage Intacct, and Centime for all-in-one cash management. My name is Devin Clark. I'm Centime's Director of Demand Generation, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I'm joining you from Boston, Massachusetts. Please feel free to share where you're joining from using the Zoom chat. Before we begin, I just want to go over a few of our housekeeping webinar notes. So first, we are recording. If you are curious to go back and rewatch any part of this webinar, we'll send you the on-demand recording via email in the next few days. Second, please engage with the polls. If you are joining from CPA Academy, you are required to answer at least 3 polls for CPE credit, and there will be a total of 4 polls today. So once we launch the Zoom poll, there will be a pop-up on your Zoom screen where you can select and then submit your answer. And then lastly, we are on chat and Q&A, so we encourage you to submit any questions that you may have for our speakers through the Q&A feature on Zoom. We do have a packed session for you today, so we will try our best to answer your questions by the end of the session. So with that, meet your speakers. I'm pleased to introduce you to BC Krishna, Centime's CEO and founder. Within his leadership role, BC is on a mission to help small to medium-sized businesses thrive by giving them the tools to manage cash and optimize working capital. As a seasoned, successful serial entrepreneur, BC loves solving large, long-standing problems through the innovative application of technology. BC previously founded companies like Future Tense, Memento, and Mineral Tree. We also have Sophia Yu. Sophia is a customer success manager here at Centime, where she focuses on client onboarding and account management. She enjoys taking clients through implementation in a tailored and personable way and is invested in the success of her clients. Prior to joining Centime, Sophia was a CSM at Mineral Tree and formerly a manager at Tiffany & Co., where she honed her skills in training, relationship management, and customer support skills. So we are thrilled about Centime's new integration with Sage Intacct, which brings unparalleled cash management solutions to the Sage ecosystem. To get us started, BC is going to dive into why cash management is imperative for small to medium-sized business success. Before we do that, I am going to stop sharing and first just launching our first poll. And I will keep this up for a few moments. So please answer this, and I appreciate that. And we'll keep this up for a few moments. And with that, BC actually had some unexpected travel today. So we recorded his section of today's webinar yesterday. So I'm going to reshare my screen, and we will walk through his recorded section.
But I also wanted to say, Devin, that
thank you, Devin.
Sorry, go ahead, BC.
I was going to say I'm present, but not live. And so we didn't want to take the risk of a poor internet connection, really disrupting the proceedings. So questions are welcome, and I'll be here to answer them along the way.
Yes, BC is in an airport lounge right now with some flaky internet. So he is here to answer questions. So I appreciate your presence with us, BC. All right, and with that, we will get to the recording.
Appreciate you having me on today. What we're going to do is to tell you a little bit about what Centime does and how our solution helps growing businesses manage and control cash and cash flow. Cash, as they say, is the lifeblood of every enterprise. And businesses that manage cash effectively are successful. Conversely, businesses that don't do a good job of managing cash can often face the risk of running out of cash at the most critical time in their growth, or simply failing. There's a US Bureau of Labor Statistics survey that suggests that something like 50% of businesses die just within 5 years of starting up. And a lot of the reasons why they do that is because they don't do a good job of managing cash and cash flow. Needless to say, managing cash is critical. Managing cash is important. And at Centime, what we have done is we've built a solution with that very thing in mind. What are the different elements of cash management? How do we take what is a process that most businesses follow today and make it more systematic, operationalize it, and give you the tools that are necessary to ensure that you can focus on the elements of cash management that are necessary to help your business thrive? I've tried to boil these into 6 different things that are operational in nature, very operational, very concrete, and very much something that every business can focus on. So these 6 things, like I said, are part of the Centime solution, but you can also think about them more generically as things that you should be doing in your business. Number 1 is obviously you have to know how much cash you have at any given point in time. Many businesses have their cash assets and liabilities distributed across a few different financial institutions. You might have a credit card, you might have a credit line. Your operating accounts may be scattered across a few different banks. And often the simple task of aggregating all of those balances and assets and liabilities can be more tedious than you think. Yeah, of course you do it, but can you make it simpler? Can you make sure that everybody that needs to know has access to it in a simple way and an aggregated way? The other thing that's important is that there are, most of you use Intacct, and Intacct does a great job of giving you a view into all of the accounts that you have, your general ledger accounts, your bank accounts, and giving you a view into how much cash exists in each bank account. But the accuracy of that is largely dependent upon your ability to reconcile your bank account with your general ledger. That can be done on a daily basis if you're posting your cash received against accounts receivable, or it might be more likely done at the end of every month when you do your month-end close, or perhaps even at the end of the quarter when you do a quarterly close. But unless you do that, there's going to be a discrepancy between your general ledger balance and your bank balance. And the accuracy of this, knowing what it is, in order to have an accurate picture as to how much cash you have, you really do need to look at both your general ledger balance as well as your bank balance. But the point is, a critical element of controlling cash is to just know how much you have. The second is to protect it. We live in an environment where 2 things that are endemic, to the world that we live in. Number 1 is that, we live in a world where fraudsters are constantly trying to make you a victim of their schemes. And, you have to figure out a way to ensure that the cash that you have in your bank account does not become a subject, to the schemes of the fraudsters. Third-party fraud, internal fraud, both are things that happen all the time. And so protecting against payment fraud is critical. More recently, and in the last year, I think businesses have become much more aware of the fact that banks are not fallible. For years and years and years, we've sort of lived under the assumption that the bank money that I put in my bank account is safe. And the reality is that most banks are indeed safe. But, if there's anything that's happened in the last year since the Silicon Valley Bank failure, the First Republic failure, the Signature Bank failure, a couple of cryptocurrency related banks that have also gone under, and more recently, some of the turmoil that we're seeing with how interest rates are affecting so-called hot deposits at banks. The reality is that, banks do fail. And when banks fail, your deposits, which are insured only to the tune of about $250,000, which is often much more than you have in your bank account, is subject to risk. Now, look, the reality is that when Silicon Valley Bank failed and took with it, the $100+ billion in deposits, people stepped in and they came up with creative solutions to replace those deposits at other banks. But nobody wants to go through a situation where those weeks, and anybody that has gone through that can only remember how difficult that was. There are ways to diversify your deposits, place your balances at different bank accounts, but that can be tedious. The point is, doing so is necessary to protect your cash against failures from banks, but also failures, fraudsters, scheming and gaming you to extract money from you. The third thing to do is to maintain a forecast. So now that you've figured out like how much cash you have and you've got the right controls in place to protect your cash, the next part of it is to really understand how this cash is going to behave over the next 13 weeks. Many of you in the finance function know to create the so-called 13-week cash flow forecast. What is going to happen with my cash inflows and cash outflows? What is my payroll? When is it going to hit? What is my book of business from a receivable standpoint, and what are the timing issues associated with my payables and receivables? It's often the case that businesses can be profitable, but because of the timing of payables and receivables or seasonality, there's a lot of stress that's placed on the cash and cash flow that you have. These are all things that you know to do and know to manage, but are you doing it systematically? Are you doing it in a way that gives your team visibility into the things that need to happen from a forecasting standpoint? Is it done in a scalable way? I've talked to a lot of finance folks who have their cash flow forecast built in a very arcane way with some tribal knowledge, with the one person at the company that knows like how the spreadsheet is built. Making that a little bit more systematic is always critical. So know how much cash you have, protect your cash, build a forecast so you know what your inflows and outflows are. And I also like to say those cash forecasts are great, but they're only a means to an end. By itself, a cash forecast doesn't do very much. But what it can do, though, is to help you plan your accounts payable. Accounts payable is a critical function at many businesses. And it is, of course, the task of bringing invoices in and paying suppliers. And at some level, you might say it's simple, and there are lots of accounts payable automation solutions that bring efficiency, cost reduction, risk reduction to your AP process. But one thing that's really important to understand, and you know this, is that AP is not just about paying the bills. It's about paying the bills at the right time. When do you pay? How much of the supplier's bill do you pay? How do you pay? And who do you pay? These are all elements of the AP process that relate to your working capital and your cash. And at the end of the day, AP is a process, but it also has a strategic imperative. And that strategic imperative is to ensure that properly managed AP can really have an impact on your days payables outstanding. The goal is to stretch your days payables outstanding because, of course, every day that you stretch your days payables outstanding adds more cash to your working capital. And that's sort of, critical because it, of course, creates a more cash cushion for you. But your forecast can help you do those things too. The opposite of stretching your days payables outstanding, of course, is to shrink your days sales outstanding. Automate your accounts receivable to get paid on time. There are many studies and surveys, and we'll be happy to share one with you if you want to sort of drop us an email that suggests this is a study that was put together by the Credit Research Foundation and DNB that breaks down by industry what the how late customers are in their payments against terms that have been provided to them. In some industries, it's fairly well within control, but in many industries, it's sort of way beyond the pale. Construction industries, for example, have a very, very bad, poor time at collecting on time. But the point is this, it's like, it's not even about being paid early. It's just about being paid on time. You know that you're providing, based on your own business, what terms to your customers that are acceptable to you. So let's say that you provide your customer 30-day terms. Well, you expect to be paid in 30 days. Effectively, you're providing 30 days of credit to your customers. And so I think many businesses today simply follow up with customers after the due date when payments are past due. But I really think it's important to kind of really consider reaching out to your customers before the due date and remind them that they have an obligation to meet the terms of the arrangement that you have with them. Accounts receivable solutions that automate the process of sending invoices, following up on the collections, being able to provide an experience to your customers to pay more easily, and then finally post cash is really something that helps you gain much more and tight control over the cash process, accounts receivable process. And then, like I said, accounts payable and accounts receivable help you stretch your days payables outstanding, shrink your days sales outstanding, and thereby keep your working capital within the range that you expect it to be. But from time to time, because of the timing of receivables and payables or other seasonality or other opportunities that you might have to grow the business, it might be a good idea to actually have a credit line. Now, you might say, I don't need a credit line. You don't need a credit line except when something is, an opportunity presents itself. So it's, of course, a good idea to really think about getting a credit line to optimize short-term liquidity and ride out the cash valleys, that timing issue that I told you about, like which means, a receivable and a payable, or insure against unforeseen outcomes, like a pandemic, for example, and hits, and like, now what? How do I deal with it? Or, the particular customer that disputes your payment, and thereby impacts your cash flow. You might need to make up that shortfall by tapping into a credit line so that you're in the right place. So these are things that you already know, nothing surprising. But the point I wanted to make more than anything else is about saying that cash management is a process for sure, but it's also very operational in nature. It involves cash forecasting. It involves strategically managing AP to stretch your days payables outstanding, strategically managing your accounts receivable to automate and shrink your days sales outstanding, ensuring that you have access to short-term credit when you need it, and then finally mitigating against the risk of loss, whether it's an unforeseen, surprising thing that a bank, your bank sort of suddenly faces, or simply, a fraudster that's figured out how to game the system and come up with some creative scheme to relieve you of, tens of thousands of dollars, or in worst case, hundreds of thousands of dollars, yeah, of precious capital that you need to grow the business. At Centime, what we have done is to pull those elements of cash management into a single integrated platform. So we help you place your accounts, your cash, in a sweep account that not only provides you with a better yield than a typical checking account does, but also ensures your raises the FDIC insurance limit on your bank balance from the $250,000 to multiple millions of dollars. It gives you liquidity. It gives you higher yield. It gives you the ability to connect multiple bank accounts into a single dashboard, gives you the ability to see how much cash you have. And as you need to move money from account to account, gives you one simple way to do so. At Centime, we have also connected with Intacct, look at the data in Intacct, and provide you with an automatically built, nightly updated 13-week cash flow forecast. We've built a full-blown accounts payable automation system that not only gives you the ability to process invoices, but also make payments, but looks at that cash flow forecast so that you have insight into who to pay, when to pay, how much to pay, and how to pay, so that you can optimize your payables. Accounts receivable automates your collections, sends out reminders. We have included a working capital line of credit so that you can tap into the cash that you need, should you need it. And then finally, a way to look at your cash-related KPIs to ensure that you're doing well. What are my DSOs? How are they trending? What are my DPOs? How are they trending? What is my burn? How do they compare from quarter to quarter? We really feel like, we put our heart and soul into building all of these things into a single platform that is integrated and works directly within Intacct, so that you can then have everything that you need to grow your business. Go home early, sleep well at night, and feel comfortable that, we have the things that are necessary to help you with your business. So finally, I want to say that, I'm going to, introduce my colleague, Sophia, who will walk us through what Centime does and how we work with Intacct to take cash management to this necessary and next level. What you're looking at here
And before we dive into the first few modules, I am going to launch the second poll, and we will keep this poll up for roughly 10 minutes. So please answer that, and we will continue on in BC's portion. Thank you.
Is the Centime Cash Management suite of applications right within the main Sage Intacct frame. One of the things that we have tried to do is to ensure that this delivers a seamless experience to you. So you're not jumping around outside the application, you're within Sage Intacct. And as you can see, you can pull down from the menu, the Centime application. And then once you choose the Centime application, you'll see your business entity on the screen here. The application itself consists of several modules. In your business, you can choose to use any one module or all of them. Today, what I'm going to do is to focus on the banking module. Sophia will also walk us through the other modules as well. So in the banking module, what you see here is a dashboard that rolls up all of your cash assets and liabilities into one screen. On the list on the right, you see the different bank accounts that you might have, and then also the other credit and loan accounts as well that make up your business. One thing to recognize is that you see the little Connect Accounts button. When you click on the Connect Accounts button, then what you'll have is the ability to log into your bank using your online banking credentials. And the result of doing that brings in your bank balances and transactions into this particular screen. So if you open up the checking, you'll see that this is, by the way, I should point out that this is a demo account. And so the banks are fictitious, as are the accounts themselves. And Sophia, if you don't mind going back to the account summary for just a second. Yeah, just click on that button and then open up the other one. So the plus on the checking. Yeah. So what you'll see here is we've previously connected to the Concord Bank, which is one of the operating accounts. And I also want to highlight that what you see here is the bank balance as seen in the bank. But because evidently this particular bank account has not been reconciled against the Intacct general ledger, there's a little bit of a difference between the bank balance and the general ledger balance. And it's perhaps because maybe there has been a payment that has been posted into the general ledger that has not yet been received into the bank account. And that's the reason for the discrepancy. As you add more accounts, they will all be listed based on the account type. You'll see the checking accounts listed here. And if you open up the savings account, they'll be listed down below as well. What I wanted to do was to highlight for you Centime Checking Plus. Centime Checking Plus, as I said earlier, is a sweep account. And what that means is that, it allows you to optionally, it's an optional thing, but basically what it does is it allows you to move your balances using a very simple account-to-account transfer function, which I'll show you, and protect your deposits to the tune of multiple millions of dollars. As I said, today we are in a situation where the FDIC coverage of any typical bank account might be only $250,000. But with Centime Checking Plus, this is now insured to the tune of multiple millions of dollars. And the way it works is that once you move your money into this account, you specify a target balance in the operating account. And so in this particular case, if your target balance is set to, let's say, $250,000, anything over that target balance is automatically swept into the sweep account and then placed at a network of about 3,000 banks. No one bank has more than $250,000 in interest and deposits. The result of that aggregation is what gives us that sort of, protection of multiple millions of dollars. It can be as much as $130 million in total, protection. Using it is as simple as doing an account-to-account transfer. So I can quickly show you how that's done, but we won't actually do it. If you can open up the checking account panel, Sophia, and then click on the Concord Bank account-to-account transfer. So you click on the account-to-account transfer button. You would choose the account from which you want to transfer. You would choose the account to which you want to transfer. And then basically that would be the sweep account. And once you specify the amount, that then moves the money in. The account-to-account transfer function also works in the other direction. So let's say that you wanted to move money from your sweep account back into the Concord Bank account. That's the way in which that would work as well. So that's it as far as that's concerned. The other thing that I wanted to just really highlight about Centime Checking Plus is that not only does it protect your deposits to the sort of $100+ million that I told you about, it also is a true checking account with high yield. Many banks or many other institutions will give you the ability to get higher yield, 3-4%, but often there are restrictions placed on how many transactions you can perform. It might be a money market account that gives you the ability to do 5 or 6 or 8 transactions per month. This is unlimited transactions. There's no restrictions on the number of transactions you can perform. But we also provide a 2.25%, 2.25% yield on any deposits that are placed in Centime Checking Plus. So protection, aggregation, instant view into all of your transactions and balances, the ability to do account-to-account transfer, and the ability to see not just your cash assets, but also your liabilities in one place. And as Sophia was earlier showing you, you can click on the detail of any given operating account and see the transactions there as well. Often this might require you to, again, these are things that you can probably do within your existing bank accounts, but the idea of doing it in one place across all of your accounts and aggregating it is the goal of what we call diversified banking. So that's a quick run through on the banking module. The other thing that I wanted to do is to show you the use of the Centime credit line. The Centime credit line is structured for those situations where you need a little extra cash and to be able to put it on your balance sheet. It's an unsecured line of credit. It is something that you have to apply for, but the application is done right from within Centime. And it typically takes a day or 2 days for you to be granted access to this unsecured line of credit. But once granted, the use of it is really simple. What you do is you click on that button to draw, and when you click the draw button, what this shows you is the cash forecast right up front. It shows you what your available balance is, what your credit line is. And the use of it is very simple. You just sort of choose the to account, which tells you which account you do want to make the transfer to. You specify the amount. And let's say that I wanted to transfer, $50,000. I would specify $50,000. I specify the payback period. And it can be, up to 90 days. And so let's say I want $50,000 for 90 days. You specify at the end of that, you can see what the impact is of that. You can see like that, the gray line shows you what your cash balance was before. And as the result of putting $50,000 into your bank account, you can see that, the blue line now shows you how much it's increased it by and how much better your cash position might be. Eventually at the 90th day, what Centime will do is to draw the $50,000 back from the account to which it was transferred to pay down your balance. Now, you might well ask the question, how much does it cost? I'll take a minute to talk about that. Basically, we've tried to make this really, really simple from the standpoint of how it's used. We don't charge an origination fee. We don't charge a draw fee. All you'll pay for is the open balance that you have on the account. So if you have, let's say that you draw $50,000 and you want to keep it for 5 days, then we'll charge you a nominal fee of 4 basis points per day against for those 5 days. At the end of the 5th day, the cash gets put back against your balance. You don't have to do anything. It just happens automatically, and you'll be assessed 4 basis points per day for the $50,000. So that's it. You can do the math. It's pretty simple. It's very cost effective. It's slightly more expensive than what a bank might charge you for a secured line of credit, but it's certainly a whole heck of a lot less expensive than what you might get from an online lender. So that's a kind of a very rapid run through on Centime Banking and Centime Credit Line. Two critical features that should be in your quiver when it comes to managing your cash and cash flow.
All right. So thank you so much. And we are launching our third poll right now. While Sophia, I will let you share your screen and we can dive into all the other modules that you are planning to walk us through today.
All right. Thank you so much, Devin. So I'll get started. And actually, we very naturally pick up where BC left off. So we are going to start with our forecasting and planning module. Now, our forecasting and planning module here is to give you insights on your cash flow and help you make day-to-day business decisions that make a difference. So this boils down to controlling what you can control. Centime will allow you to visualize your cash flow, and it'll allow you to make informed decisions based on the data that's in front of you. When you can see what it breaks down to and the components that make up your cash flow, you'll be better prepared to make impactful business decisions that support what your business faces on a day-to-day basis. This might mean it helps you see and determine when to pay a large AP invoice. It might mean it helps you see and determine which AR payment you need to focus your efforts on collecting and really do things that help make a difference and move the needle. So I will give you an overview of the module now. We'll go right in here. All right, so when you click into the forecasting and planning module, it brings up our cash flow waterfall. Now, Centime gives you a 13-week forecast, which is the gold standard, but you can also project out to 6 months out or even a shorter period of time. And with the cash flow waterfall, it's based on 4 components. So number 1, we have AI predictions from historical data. This comes in the form of Centime predictions. We leverage machine learning and historical data to see what's going to be coming your way, even if an invoice hasn't been sent out to you yet, or you haven't sent out an invoice, or if there are outflows or inflows that are non-invoice based, such as payroll. Number 2, the next component is OpenAR. The third component is OpenAP. And the fourth component to your forecast is the manual insights created by you, either inflows or outflows. Now, these are the insights that only you would know as a professional. Maybe a new customer has signed and there's obviously no pattern for them yet, no invoices created. You can put your own insights and Centime will model out what that looks like and how that impacts your forecast. The through line here in purple is your closing balance, and it will rise and fall depending on those inflows and outflows. If you click into any of these bars, say this dark red bar, the week of February the 24th, you can see the exact, in this case, outflows in the form of AP invoices that make up that component. Now back to the cash flow waterfall. I'm going to take you next to the cash flow table. So this is another view of your forecast. As you can see, you have individual inflows and outflows, but you also have cash flow groups. So network and security here is one group, and you can organize and group your inflows and outflows accordingly. So maybe you have inflows or outflows by region or industry, payroll, office expenses, etc. And that way you can see the collective forecast for that group. And you can also see the individual forecast, inflow by inflow or outflow by outflow. You can also click into an inflow. For example, I'm going to click on this software customer and bring that out to a weekly view. zoom out a bit, and you can see for this software company what makes up this forecast. So we have the actual invoices that I'm expecting for the week of the 24th, but we also have Centime predictions. So we're expecting another 11,400 the week of the 24th and the week of the 23rd of March. If I go into these predictions, I can take a look at what Centime has projected, and maybe I know better. Maybe I know that the week of February the 18th, maybe I know that I'm getting 13,000, and I can tell the system and update it accordingly. I can remove predictions as I need to, and that is how you act on the Centime predictions. Now, I spoke earlier about those manual insights that only you would know. This is where you can enter a manual transaction. So maybe a service fee is coming up and you want to put that into your projections. You can put that in as a one-time fee or a recurring fee. Centime has a provision where we will not double count this once you produce the actual invoice when that time comes a little bit closer. So you will not get double counted, but you can still model out a future inflow or outflow. All right. And then finally, I'm going to take you to our planning feature.
And Sophia, sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Before you get to the planning feature, we do have one question. Can the cash flow waterfall be filtered by dimensions like product line or department?
I believe you will want to take a look at the cash flow table for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So in our planning feature, this is where everything sort of comes together. Okay, so it's really actively managing your cash. And just like its name, you're actively planning here based on what you know, based on what you can control. And this ties with our other modules, our payables module and our receivables module. And so you'll go in here and update your expected payment dates and see how that actually contributes to your cash flow. So for example, I'm going to take a look at receivables. And then when I'm looking at my receivables, I can see that I have a really large invoice coming in from Quad Design. This is a almost $42,000 invoice. As you can see, it is predicted to be paid by my customer on February the 21st. Maybe I've just had a conversation with this customer and I've been able to get them to pay it earlier on February the 15th. I'll go into Centime, I'll go into planning and update this date to the 15th. And you'll be able to see that this inflow has now shifted to February the 15th. You can see how that impacts your closing balance. And I can now record this as what was the promise date because I've spoken to the customer and they've committed this date to me. And that way, anybody else that I collaborate with in Centime, they can see that this was entered for a reason and this was entered by me. So this really fosters that collaboration as well. All right. And in summary, it's a living, breathing forecast. It's a really holistic system that you have a hand in, and it takes all of these factors into play and helps you determine what action to take when. So I will move on to our next module, which is our payables module. So the goal of automating AP is to streamline your payables workflow. With Centime's help, you'll be able to strategically manage your AP to be in line with your goals. Centime helps you achieve this by centralizing and simplifying your AP workflow from beginning to end, and our two-way sync with Intacct allows you to always be up to date and accurate. And there's a lot of pain associated with AP. There's manual processes, paper checks, chasing down email or manual approvals, which can be extremely time-consuming, especially if you are remote or hybrid. And there's also the risk of fraudulent activity among all of that. Where Centime comes in is our platform centralizes this workflow from beginning to end, essentially putting your invoice through a step-by-step from initial invoice review down through to payment and coding down through any coding you need to do through to the payment through posting to Intacct. And so you're completely in line with all of your necessary checks and balances in as few steps as possible. It also leverages machine learning and AI, and it keeps a detailed invoice history. You can always easily access the entire journey of the invoice at a glance. And it records back that information to Sage Intacct so that you're always in sync and accurate. Now for the overview of our payables module. So now I'm accessing my payables module. I'm going to start with the documents tab here. Your invoice starts here. When you enter it into the system, you can either upload it or you can forward it into your custom Centime email address. It then goes through invoice capture, which takes only a few moments. And this is where machine learning and AI helps extract data and apply coding based on your previous patterns to save you time. It continuously learns what you update on an invoice and it adapts. And the more invoices you process, the better and better it gets. So next, once you've put it through invoice capture, you're going to be able to come in here and review the invoice. So this is where you take that step, that human review that you need to take and enter in any missing information or make any updates to the coding. You can access the dedicated coding tab here so that everything is laid out, easy to tab back and forth and easy to code to every field that you need to. And then next, you'll need to send it for invoice approval. So we have customizable invoice approval policies that are set up here. And we have policies that you can actually even stack by condition. So in the simplest of policies, maybe you have a supplier policy where suppliers A, B, and C are always approved by approver Susan. Well, you might have that as well as any invoices that come in for those suppliers. You might also be coding to a specific GL account. And when you stack those conditions, that's one policy that goes to Susan. We do support this where you stack multiple conditions, and that can be just simply one policy. We also support prioritizing policies. So if multiple policies might apply to one invoice, you can actually drag and drop, for example, gardening services. If I want that to take priority over insurance expenses, I can drag and drop that to the top. And any invoices that come through gardening services, that policy will prevail. All right, and then going back to our AP module. There are also collaborative features here, like we have our notes feature where you can put a note directly on the invoice. We also have tasks that you can assign to yourself or others. And it really fosters collaboration and allows communication across the board to anyone that has to touch the invoice who is also in Centime. All right, so following invoice approval, you'll post the invoice, you'll post the document, and that is when it syncs to Intacct. And next, following that, we will be ready for payment. So we'll jump into unpaid invoices to do payment processing.
And while we're doing that, Sophia, a few more questions came up. Is the AP module integrated into your GL system?
Yes, we have
And-
a two-way sync.
Yes, it is. It is fully integrated with Intacct, and if you don't use Intacct, you use QuickBooks or NetSuite, it is integrated with that as well. And so it's two-way synchronization and pulls data from the GL and posts data back to the GL.
And then we have a second question is, if you reprint the invoice, do the notes show?
I'm not sure I follow the question. Reprint, I mean, the invoice is the invoice. We don't update the invoice with the notes that you add to it. Hope that answers the question.
Okay. All right, Sophia, back on to you.
Thanks, Devin. So now that we're in payment processing, you will jump into the unpaid invoices tab, and Centime has a two-step payment release. So here you'll actually be able to influence payment methods. We've just launched our supplier portal, and with supplier portal, you can invite your suppliers to designate their payment methods. So this can be a super helpful feature if you are, say, in 2024, if you are undertaking the endeavor to move your suppliers off of checks and onto an electronic payment method, you can utilize the supplier portal. You can also leverage payment methods that extend cash on hand. I know we all want to keep more cash on hand for longer. We do offer our own in-house virtual card, which is more secure than both ACH or check, and it gives you between 26 to 56 days of float. And on top of that, you also earn cashback rebates. So you're going to make money off of the payments that you already have to make. And of course, with that, you can pay off, you can use it towards your Centime subscription or anything else. So really, you can utilize it to make money on your payments. All right, now back to payments. So the first step of our two-step payment release is to submit it for payment authorization. I'm going to go into the Pay tab, and here again is where you can control what you can control. So I'm going to switch my view up here from our aging graph to our cash impact bars, and this is going to give you a mini forecast up here. So from here, say this $30,000 invoice, say I want to pay it a little bit later. I want to stretch this out, not February 22nd. I'm going to move it to the 26th where I don't have any payables yet, and just allow more time for inflows to come in. I can schedule it for February the 26th. So then I will send this for payment authorization. My payment authorizer is also going to have the opportunity to look at the payment schedule date. And when they approve and that schedule date arrives, the payment will go out and it's going to record to Intacct. And so that is all you need to do for the payment. If there was a check, it will record the check number to Intacct. That is all you need to do, and that wraps up your AP workflow. All right, so now we are going to move on to our AR module. So I'm going to go back.
Before you do that, Sophia, if I can just interject for just a second. One thing I do want to highlight, which we didn't have a lot of time to go into, is that core to managing AP in this fashion is to ensure that you take advantage of the controls that we have built into the AP process. And whether it means bringing in the invoice, capturing the invoice data, and going through a formal approval process with policies associated with it means that you now have control over whether or not, for example, there are very many times that you receive duplicate invoices or fake invoices from suppliers. So the ability to have controls in place to mitigate against that is a core feature of any AP system, and certainly Centime as well. Segregation of duties, dual authority is another control that mitigates the risk of things like internal fraud or even third-party fraud, where somebody tries to hoodwink you into paying them a bill that should not be paid. But controls aside, one of the things that we've really tried to do is to say that, we feel so strongly about the controls that we've built and also the capabilities that we've built into our solution that we actually insure against fraud. So despite using Centime, if you become a victim to third-party fraud, we will cover you to the tune of $100,000 per incident. And so that is, a way in which we say, listen, this is something that helps you clean up, the controls that you might or might not have, or consistency apply, but also put our money where our mouth is.
Thank you, BC. So I'll move into our AR module. The goal of Centime's AR module is simple. It's to get you paid faster through automation. So collections can be time consuming. There's a lot to keep track of, and it can be hard to stay organized with all of those variables at play. And so with Centime, you can utilize our receivables module to create a set and forget system. We have set and forget workflows that allow you to customize your communications to your customers. And so that they're being reminded on a customized basis, and that you don't have to remember little invoices or constantly keep personal notes to yourself to remember to reach out to your customers. So these are some examples of workflows here. As you can see, for prompt payers, there's one that's at 7 days before the due date. There's a reminder on the due date, 7 days after, and 14 days after. So this is the set and forget part. So Once you've set the collections workflow.
Simply put, sorry to interrupt you again, but simply put, think of this as your dunning notices, which might be typically sent out after the due date, being extended backwards in time to be systematically applied to customers and gently remind them. And you can kind of control, and Sophia will go into it, you can control the tone, the voice down to the individual customer.
Absolutely. So as your reminders go further and further out into the future, maybe you also have an internal reminder reminding someone from your own team that, hey, this is 28 days past due. You can have that collaborative feature as well to remind someone internally. And also, of course, as BC mentioned, you can upgrade that language in terms of urgency or severity as you need to. You can customize each of these reminders. All right, so you have set these workflows and then you will assign your customers. Maybe you've got workflows by industry or by region or by customer payment timeliness. As you see here, prompt payers or slow payers. You can assign, and that's the, like I said, that's the set and forget part. We also use machine learning here because we take a look at your customers' payment patterns. So when you take a look at your customers, they might have a red or green clock next to their name. So we use machine learning to identify the patterns of their behaviors. Do they usually pay late? Do they usually pay early? And maybe that informs your strategy with them. And maybe that informs which workflow you place them on. The next part I love to share, it is our customer portal. I may have to log back in here, but this will share the customer experience. So in every single reminder that your customer receives on an invoice, they will be able to access a Pay Now link that takes them to the Centime customer portal. They will log in with the email that you have on file for them. And as sort of our lock-in key, we will send a verification code to that email, which I'm going to pull up on my end in my email.
And while Sophia is pulling that up, we will also launch our fourth poll.
So that was the OTP code that I received to the email that I have on file with my demo vendor. So I will utilize this code as my key to access the customer portal. I apologize. Let me make sure I grab the right code. Let's resend. So here is my, oh, that's why I copied and pasted. Okay, so I'll utilize that one-time code. And then I will be able to log into my own version of the customer portal. This probably looks very familiar. We do, of course, give your customers a similar experience to Centime. And so your customers will be able to log in, see any unpaid invoices they have outstanding with you. They'll also be able to update their payment method, whether ACH or credit card. And if your customer does pay you by these electronic payment methods, we automate the cash application and reconciliation. So if your customers pay you by a Centime reminder, that takes care of that work off of you. You don't have to do anything further for that AR payment. So your customer can set their payment method, and then they can also see any paid invoices that have already been paid. In this case, in this demo site, there isn't one, but they can see their history with you. And it really just gives such a great customer experience that you can provide them this luxury of being able to help themselves to all of the invoices that they have with you. They can answer their own questions. They can see the attachment document. and otherwise hopefully cut back on the back and forth that you might otherwise need to have with your customers. All right, so back into the AR module. Let me grab. So in AR, there are also internal notifications that you can use to communicate with your other team members as well as notes. And then last but not least, you can also send statements to your customers. So maybe you just want to send them an entire statement. And then from that statement, they can also access the customer portal, as well as you can send individual invoice reminders as well. You can send individual emails through this feature. All right. And finally, to sum it all up, we have our KPIs module. So in our KPIs module, you can see everything come together in the sense of what's happened historically. You can look at your performance category. In this case, I'm looking at receivables. And in receivables, not only do you have, your category specific KPIs, such as collections effectiveness and day sales outstanding, you can also drill down to viewing by the customer. And so when you do view by the customer, you can take a look at who has the strongest impact on your AR, who has the strongest impact on your cash. And not only is it about how many invoices, but it's about the amount. So looking at this easy to reach information, it might determine your strategy. And by utilizing the overall KPI module, you can take a look in here after you've made a change and compare from, before you implemented Centime and after, you can take a look to see how that's impacted your KPIs. All right, and that concludes our demo.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Amazing job. Let me reshare my screen just quickly. All right, and I hope you can see the tour of Centime. So again, thank you, Sophia and BC, for walking us through the importance of cash management and a demo of Centime, now also built for Sage Intacct. We also integrate, as BC had mentioned earlier in the session, with QuickBooks Online and NetSuite. If anyone is eager to experience Centime themselves, I encourage you to check out centime.com/tour. And here you can create a free trial account and you can kind of walk through your own demo account, play around with some of the modules, and ask us any questions that you may have. Additionally, we are thrilled to be a silver sponsor at Sage Transform. So this is Sage's annual event at the end of this month. So if you are planning to attend, I encourage you to stop by at Centeme's booth number 94. Sophia and I will both be there. So we'd love to meet you and say hi in person. And thank you again for everyone joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.